Being a musician is tough. A musician faces rejection constantly, especially in the early stages of their development. They get told they're good, but not good enough yet. It takes immense courage to face failure, rejection, and to summon up the guts to continue applying to competitions, to auditions, to festivals, music schools, agencies, and auditions. Today, I am delighted to have Avguste Antonov here to discuss this aspect of being a musician. Courage. My guest today, Avguste Antonov, was born in Bulgaria, but has studied piano in France and the United States as well. He has studied under the guidance of Alain, Motard, Herve, Ecole, Stanislav, Ioudenitch, and Tamas Ungar, just to name a few. Avguste Antonov has also had the privilege of taking masterclasses with Grigory Sokolov, Olga Kern, Antonel, Herve, Kolpinski, and many, many more. He feels at home with repertoire from the 20th century, 21st century, but all repertoire amongst the other centuries as well. He has performed world and US premieres at venues across North America, and over the years has worked with composers such as Carter Pan, whose music we'll hear a little bit of today, Gregory Hutter, Michael Colgrass, William Vollinger, and many more. Avguste Antonov has performed recitals all over the United States, including Colorado, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, Florida, and many other cities. He has been featured in soloists with various ensembles, including the San Jose State University Wind Symphony, San Jose Wind Symphony, the University City Symphony, Alton Symphony Orchestra, and just many more. He has been such a prolific performer. He has lectured as well at the Oklahoma Music Teachers Association, Wisconsin Music Teachers Festival, and the Colburn Music Summer Festival. He's an adjudicator for various international competitions, and in 2021, Mr. Antonov was named on the advisory board of our very own Sound Espressivo Global Competition. He now resides in France, and during the year 2019 to 2020, he was piano professor at the School of Music, Couleur Musique, in Bordeaux, and in September 2020, he became professor of piano and accompaniment at the Conservatoire de Chateaubriand. Avguste Antonov also gives masterclasses and lessons over Skype to students all over the world. So it's my pleasure to have him on the show. Welcome, Avguste. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me, Chris. Nice to see you. Good to see you on the other side of the Sound Espressivo broadcast.
Absolutely. I think the last time we actually properly chatted was probably when you were judging at the Sound Espressivo competition last year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I was lucky to be one of the judges listening to your performance from last year. So it's definitely a pleasure to see you now on the other side, experiencing the other side of Sound Espressivo.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to explore this side of the industry too, which I think you know quite well, in the sense that, you know, once you've graduated from conservatory and you've graduated from university, it's time to explore other options and to see what else, what other gifts you have, other skills you have that you can develop. And I think that I really admire about you is exactly that, the fact that after graduating, after studying, you continue to perform, you continue to be judging competitions, you're teaching a lot, but you're also, you know, now advisory board, and you're getting into a lot of this organization and helping the industry and talking to people. What is that like being for you?
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful. One thing about me is that I'm not one to just sit back and wait for things to happen. For things to happen for me, to me, or in general in the industry. I've always been one to to look for opportunities to get more involved, whether it is as a soloist in my career, whether it be as a professor of piano, whether it be obviously as a jury for various competitions, and obviously as an advisory board of some Espressivo. So I've always been one to look at what is possible, what can I do more, and not wait for someone to give it to me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And so as a young musician in Conservatoire, did you feel like when you were studying, you were also like this?
Absolutely. One thing, and I think that goes back to my studies in France in the 90s. I've always been trained as a performer. In a sense that I've always been trained to be on stage. And yeah, when I went to the United States, I had to find my way in or out of the universities. That's a bit of it's a related subject, but it's a deeper subject than that. But to come back to your question, yeah, I've always been that way. I've always been looking for ways for me to perform, for me to be out there, to show what I can do, to help other musicians as well. I've always been that way.
So today's topic, which we're going to discuss a little bit more further, is courage, and what does that mean, and what forms that it takes. And I want to develop this a bit further, because it seems like when you say that you're the kind of person who doesn't wait around, you don't wait for opportunities to just pop up on your lap. How does that intersect with having the courage to ask for opportunities?
It does because let's go back just a tiny bit. The fact of the matter is that in our industry, there is the prevalent thinking that one needs to win major competitions to make a career. Whether that career is performing or teaching, one needs to win a major competition like Tchaikovsky, von Craibon, and the likes. That's the prevalent thinking. That's the thinking of major conservatoires, universities worldwide. I think it's just that competition is just one side of it. Winning or losing doesn't make a career. It's what follows the competition. Yeah. We all know, I'm sure you do as well, we all know of musicians who have won major competitions, and then a couple years later, after the competition prizes have completely disappeared because there wasn't that following. Yeah, exactly. You just hear them for a couple of years, the prizes of the competition, and then nothing more. So the competition is one thing. What's important is the follow-up. What's important is for you as the artist to be out there, to continue to perform, to find opportunities, if that makes sense.
Of course, yes.
And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's part of it.
Yes, I think to further develop on this question, I think it's a lot of musicians I know, and I think this happens a little bit more with pianists, is that there's a lot of insecurity and uncertainty about their own value. And so in asking for opportunities, you have to value yourself in a certain way in order to feel like you have something to offer. What would you say to people who are, studying or even coming out of school and they're not sure of their self-worth? They're not sure what they can actually offer. They're like, oh, compared to so-and-so, I don't have all that repertoire. Compared to so-and-so, I haven't done all these things. Maybe I should just hide all this and just do something else.
That's a very good point, because I find myself sometime in that same position. When you compare, and it's not just pianists. I think it's everyone looking to make a career in the business, whether it's cellist, violinist, harpist, percussionist, you name it. We all have tendency to compare ourselves to other people. What I would say is that all of us, we have something to offer. Every single musician, whether it's a pianist, cellist, you name it, we all have something to offer to an audience. We all have something to offer to a presenter, to a manager, when we're talking about management. But the only way for us to showcase it is for us to be out there, go after that opportunity instead of waiting for the opportunity to come to us. So to the young musicians, that the conservatory musicians, I would say, don't wait. Take every opportunity that comes your way to get more experience on stage, to play in front of people, for people to hear you in all various settings. Because I think that's the most important.
I really, really appreciate you saying that, and I wish I heard that when I was in conservatory.
That's the thing. Conservatories don't, and I say conservatories in global term. I know different countries call it different ways. In the United States, is universities. France, conservatories. So conservatories global. Institutions don't have the habit of talking and teaching about the music business. Which, well, yes, they do, but the only thing they talk about, generally speaking, is the competitions. How to get into Tchaikovsky, how to win von Cliburn, how to win whatever singing competition or violin. How to, because that's the prevalent thinking. That's the old school thinking in a way.
Well, that's how actually I got to. I was watching a interview that you did with Rada Music, and that's how actually I was listening to it, and that's how this topic came about. Because I think what you said, on top of saying the schools don't teach us how to the music business, is you said that they don't teach you how to be a courageous musician, how to have courage and actually make. And put that as something that's actually valuable, that it's not so much that you have to be a perfect musician. You just have to have the courage to continue to develop yourself daily and consistently, and work hard, obviously. And then a career will blossom. And it's going to be always your own career. No career is the same. There's no cookie cutter, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely right. One thing, so you said many things. So let's go one by one. Courage. If people want to be in this business, when I say business, I'm talking the performing business, being on stage.
Yeah.
Those people have to have, sorry for the expression, but have to have the balls to be courageous. Have to be willing to put themselves up for failure.
Yeah.
And not just for the sake of failure, but failure helps the growth. So being courageous is really about believing in yourself, believing in what you're capable of doing, and going for what you want to go for. It's not about following a specific career path that someone has dreamed up for you. You have to, as the musician, as the artist, you have to believe in what you want. And you have to take the chances to get it. However painful it is, however long it takes. And you're right, we have the bad habits all of us musicians to compare ourselves to others. In piano, we compare ourselves to Ashkenazi. We compare ourselves to Martha Argerich, to Hélène Grimaud, to Gregory Sokolov, to Andre Watts, you name it. I think it's human nature to want to compare. But one thing, and I was in the same position, comparing myself to my contemporaries, the Ioudenitch, the likes, the Olga and so forth. But I think, and you said it yourself, it's not about so much comparing us as much as finding our own path, our own career, and in a sense of what makes us happy. And I think you agree with me. We'll never get to the level of Nelson Frère.
Yeah. Where he rested
who just passed away today. That's why I mention it. We'll never get to the level of Martha Argerich. We may dream, but we'll never get to the level of Ashkenazi Andre Watts. What we can do is use them as examples of not necessarily their career, but example of their playing to improve our own playing. But afterwards, our own careers are our own careers. However we want to make it, that's how we make it.
Absolutely. And I think it's inspiring to talk about this in the form of business as well, because if everybody who's a software engineer believed that they could never get as good as Steve Jobs, or a designer could never get as good as Steve Jobs, then no one will ever make anything new. And I think it's important to feel like, no, I can do my own thing too. I can create my own product. I can do something different. And yes, people go on.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is absolutely the perfect comparison. I'm a computer geek. I play video games on my computer. If I don't answer your phone call, I am playing video games. And and I'm not sure if our listeners will even know what I'm talking about, but if you go on Steam, Steam is a gaming platform.
Yeah.
You will see so many games, wonderful games, made by independent developers that are not working for the big names such as Sony, Microsoft, and so forth. And just looking at that shows you the talent that's out there. And I think that's a perspective that's a perspective that lacks in our business, in the music side of business, whether it is management, presenters, orchestra directors, and the likes. There's just so much. They're so attached to the big names that they don't look to the other side to see all the available talent that's out there. That just needs one or two opportunities to shine. And it's not just about performing; it's about the publicity. It's about the sponsorship, be it financial or otherwise. Our industry, the classical music industry, is so. I don't have a better word than attached. It's so tied up to the big names, to the winners of competitions, that they don't look to the other side, to those that, may not have won a major competition, but may be playing 1,000 times better than the guy that won.
I really like what you said about that, because I think we need to highlight the fact that other people can be doing other things with their career and can be just as successful, and that success isn't defined by how many competitions you've won. I think success is such a broad way to define someone's career, and I think using the game analogy that we talked about, if everyone stopped creating games, or they felt inferior after seeing, I've played League of Legends, that's the best game I've played, I couldn't possibly develop a game better than that. That would sound like nonsense to any gamer. No, I can develop a different game, a new game, different graphics. I could do this, I can do that. I can make it better. Except with some pieces, I could never play a Tchaikovsky piano concerto better than Martha Argerich. And it's like, well, what if you could play it differently? What if you could do something different with it? Whatever, yeah.
I think that's right. It's not so much whether you can play it better. You mentioned Tchaikovsky. It's not about whether you play Tchaikovsky better than Martha or than Yuja Wang or than Olga Kern. We're talking, and for our listeners, we're talking Tchaikovsky because we're both pianists. So we both relate to the
violin concerto too.
Well, I can't relate to the violin because I don't play violin, but yeah, it's not about playing better than someone. I think it's more, and you said it yourself, I think it's more about what can you bring that is different but still attractive. That is you play differently Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff than André Watts or Olga Kern or Yuja Wang, but you're still bringing those feeling in the audience. The audience still appreciates your playing. You're still getting a standing ovation. It's not because you're better than Yuja or Olga. It's because you're bringing something else. You're bringing your own style, your own playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's most inspiring for me in overcoming fear or rejection or just a kind of being very negative or uncertain is to actually compare myself with other artists or high achievers. So someone like I really love the story of like Kobe Bryant and his incredible Mamba mentality, his work ethic. I love the ideas coming from comedians who before like their Netflix show 1 year before they're already playing to all the small comedy clubs everywhere, and they're testing their material, they're refining it, they're testing the timing, they're very scientific with their process, so that when the time they get to the Netflix special or where they're playing the big arenas, they already know everything that they're about to do for the next 2 hours. It's perfected. And I think, that's very inspiring. That makes me excited. That gives me ideas about how I could use what they do into my own process. And I think that gives me courage. And So I personally believe the antidote to fear is to turn it into some sort of excitement. How can I make this into something that's potentially useful for me or potentially good for me? What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. You used the example of comedians. I'll use the example of wrestlers, of world wrestling entertainment. So for those of you that don't know, that's the catch in the United States. Same thing. Nowadays, John Cena is known as one of the biggest WWE superstars. But back in the day when he started, he first started to wrestle in OW, which was the training ground for wrestlers out in Florida. He started to wrestle in garages in front of 5-10 people, because that's how you build your connection with the audience. You work on your moves. And so to come back to music, that's something we can definitely use. We can definitely use every performance that we do as a step up to the next one. Not so much in a sense of maybe audience level or venue type, but in a sense of our own knowledge of the music. When you play for the first time Rachmaninoff Second Sonata, you may not play it as well as you're gonna play it 5 months later down the road. So each performance can be used exactly as a comedian, as a wrestler, to build up your next level.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what we have to always imagine ourselves being in, which is that we're in a process. Yeah, it's very hard. I think for me personally, I think when I was in conservatory, it always felt like every performance defined me, or every masterclass performance, every recital. It was like, that's how people are going to view me, and that's it. And so there was a lot of pressure. But I think the antidote to that, or the way to go around it, is to remember that we're a process in the making. You know, if you're into, you know, drinking scotch, you wouldn't say, oh, this 5-year scotch, okay, this is ruined, that's it. You're not going to define it that way. You say, no, let's leave it in the barrel longer and see what happens. And then, you know, a few years later, it becomes something incredible. And if you just define it within the 5 years, you have no way to see what potential it will be in another 10, 15, 20 years. That's like wine as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. But yeah, in Conservatoire, or whether in France, Australia, New York, or whatever, yeah, every time you get on stage, you feel that pressure. Because you're judged by your peers. And not necessarily that, but let's be fair, let's be cash. You want to showcase. You want to show you want to show you want to show up to your peers. You want to show your peers that you're the best.
It's true.
You want to show
true.
to let's call it arrogance. Let's call it what it is. It's the arrogance of wanting to be the best, the person, the top of the food chain.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'll tell you a story. I had that experience firsthand. Failed miserably. I still remember to this day, back in 2004, 5. Was it 5? I don't even... Yeah, 2004. A pianist from Texas, University of Texas, came over to give a master class. And I was not supposed to do the master class. That was supposed to be a day off for me. I was supposed to be just listening. So I show up, and I'm told that we're missing one person for the master class. Guess who they asked to play? Me. Problem is, I wasn't ready. In a sense that I knew the piece that was I knew how to play it. I've played it. I just wasn't ready for that day.
Yeah.
Because I had so much overburnt confidence. Arrogance, let's put it that way. That I actually never even thought that, well, somebody's gonna be missing and I'm gonna ask me to play. I just showed up in my joggings, just, not even ready to play. So I played, I remember, it was a Mozart sonata. I don't even remember which one.
Oh no.
But I failed miserably. That was the shame. And I swore after that, you're never gonna catch me twice. I'll be ready every single time.
So that's a what we call a learning experience.
Yeah,
a very valuable learning experience.
That's a learning experience that actually made me good, made me better, just because it put me in my place. And I think I needed that at that time. I needed to be brought down a peg, as we say.
No, thank you for sharing that story. I know, in hindsight, were able to laugh about it, but I know that at the time it was very crushing. And I think these are the things that sometimes give us the best lessons, give us the best kind of waking alarm call. I want to bring a quote up by Benjamin Disraeli, who says that action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action. And I think this is a very interesting way to think about fear and to talk about it, because we need to take action in our careers. And is this my way of segueing into how you have, after coming out of school and conservatory, university, developed a career for yourself? Obviously out of action, because
out of action, absolutely. It's a great quote, because if one doesn't take action, there's nothing coming. There's nothing on the other side. So I absolutely love that quote. Absolutely. As to how I started my career, well, I was at a point in my life. So back in 2008, I was at a point in my life where I had to make a choice of a repertoire, because I knew I would be in a performance business. I mean, like I said, I was trained as a performer from the get-go. So I had a decision to make. Do I stick to the classical repertoire, Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, Rachmaninoff, and then risk to be compared to other pianists and having to deal with critics, positive or negative? Or do I go toward the repertoire that's less performed? And I chose to go toward that. So that's how I started to perform American living composers back in 2008. Because and still right now in 2021, when you can count on one hand how many pianists do this type of repertoire, whether it's American living composers or just living composers in general, you can count it on one hand. But that brought me success, and that's how I made my name, with that type of repertoire.
Thank you for sharing that. That's inspiring, because it's another side of a development of a career that isn't really talked about as much, and some people almost frown upon it in more traditional settings, because it's like, oh no, you couldn't play. And I'm just putting this, out there. It's not like I'm not judging you, obviously, but it's like, oh, you couldn't play Beethoven, or Chopin well, so you decided to play somebody else. And I think that's very judgmental, first of all, and negative, but also it dismisses not only the ability of the pianist that is you, but also the composition, or then all the composers who are out there. You're just putting a blanket statement saying, no, nothing's ever going to be as good as Beethoven and Chopin. If you can't play those well, you're not a musician, kind of thing.
It's funny. All the people that may think that who may think this, they have no idea what they're talking about, because all of the living composers, whether it is Carter Pan, whether it is John Mackey, whether it is Lieberman, they all studied classical composition. They all studied Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, Rachmaninoff, you name it.
Yeah.
But so in that way, all of those people thinking negative thoughts about modern music, they're completely wrong. The fact of the matter is that, similar to performers, there are composers out there, wonderful composers that we never hear about, but deserve to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Carter Pan, I want to take this time to actually play a little bit of a segment of a piano trio that he wrote, that you played with a violinist and a cellist. Could you tell us a little bit about that piece before we play it?
Absolutely. So it's, Carter and I have a long story, long history. We met in 2001 at the University of Kansas. He came as a guest for a performance of Slalom, which is a piece he wrote originally for orchestra but was transcribed for wind symphony. And so I was the pianist for that piece, and we connected immediately. we both have a huge love for chess. We both have we both love the same composers: Ravel, Rachmaninoff, Brahms, you name it. And we became great friends. I mean, he is my best friend. I love the guy to death. And so his trio, he wrote that trio, if I recall correctly, in 2004, if I get the date correct. And it took me a few years to get it done, about 6 years or so, 7 years to actually get it performed, because you have to find the people to play it with.
Yeah.
So what you're gonna show today, it's the fourth movement of his piano trio, Niki's trio. I'm the pianist, obviously. My mom, Krasimira Fig, is the cellist.
Oh, wonderful.
She is a cellist at the Tulsa Symphony in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the violinist is a friend of my mom. I'm sorry, it's been so many years. I completely the name completely went out of my head. But as you all hear, it's a wonderful performance.
Yeah.
Wonderful trio, and thank you for showing it.
No, let's hear some of that. Thank you for the introduction. Wow. I absolutely love this piece. It's incredible.
Well, thank you. And before I forget, the violinist was Paolo Esquich. Paolo, if you're listening, I'm sorry, man. It's been so long. It's been so many years. Yeah.
No problem. No, I love that the language of the music is, first of all, not very foreign. It's relatable, it's understandable, and it's very dramatic. And I can see it's quite difficult to play too.
It is. One thing, when we talked about earlier about how I got started and I chose the repertoire and so forth. One thing that, and that's me, so every person is different. But from the very beginning, I wanted to play living composers, yeah, but composers that wrote music that has a melody.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the audience.
Yeah.
Because an audience would have, and it has proven to be right, an audience is much more likely to enjoy new music that they can catch on.
Yeah.
Than if they listen to Stockhausen or Steve Reich. And to come back to Carter's piece, this is it's a difficult trio. It's almost Brahms-like.
Yeah.
The type of work that needs to be put into not just the trio, but all of Carter's works, whether it's piano solo, chamber music, piano concerto, it's very, very much work, Brahms-like work, Rachmaninoff-type work. And the thing is, Carter is a pianist himself. He studied at Eastman with Barry Snyder. He had his bachelor in piano performance before going into composition. So
he knows what he was doing there.
he knows what he's doing. He is never going to write something for piano that is not playable.
Yeah.
Now, whether one can do or easy. Now, whether one can do it, that
Exactly.
depends on the person. I've been lucky. I've been lucky in the case of Carter to have him as a great friend. And I've been lucky to. I mean, I love his music. Ever since we met in 2001, I always play at least one of his pieces in one of my concerts. Always. So, but yeah, that trio, it's a wonderful trio, needs to be played more often. So yeah.
Though your relationship with Carter is actually a beautiful example of what's possible and what was actually very prevalent with the composers we love and we play often. Yeah, the fact that, you know, Schumann, Brahms had that beautiful friendship, and Clara would play the music of Brahms and music of Robert. It's just one example, but this happens all over the place, and this comes when, you know, musicians back in the day a little bit weren't just specializing in, you know, either chamber music or they're specializing in just teaching, but they did everything. And it's not, I don't think they had the courage to do it, but it was just expected. It was just one part of being an artist. And I think we're slowly returning to this, and your story and your example of being such good friends with Carter is actually a really beautiful example that people need to hear more about, because it's something that's possible.
It is possible, and that's one of the things that I also love about playing contemporary music. The composers are right there for you to talk to, whether it's Carter, whether it is Lieberman, whether it is John Mackey, they're all out there for you to connect with, to talk with them about their compositions, to build a connection, and that's not something you can do in classical music, per se. Very difficult to. You have to go look in the archives for Beethoven's thought on his Tempest Sonata.
Or you need a time machine. You need a time machine somehow to bring him back from the dead.
Exactly. But and that's one thing also that music students need to think of when they think about their career. Yeah. What type of repertoire they wanna focus on? Yeah. What works for them? Does it work to be playing the classical side of the things, the Baroque side? Want more contemporary, more music, more variety styles / Michael Jackson thing or whatever. Yeah. Each one needs to figure what works for them to make their own career, own path.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's important to realize that there is an audience for it all, especially in this day and age where we have ways to share this music in such a broad and various forms of like social media, for example. I think it's important that we realize there's a fan base for whether you are just doing Michael Jackson covers or you're doing a lot of new music, or whether you're playing a lot of Chopin and Beethoven. There's an audience out there. But you have to have the courage or the sincerity to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it really well, and I'm going to engage with the audience, and I'm going to make a real effort to discover this side of myself.
You're right. In retrospect, I would say that the COVID crisis we just went through and we're still going through was probably beneficial in that sense.
Absolutely.
Because ever since January, February 2020, we can find in various people doing stuff on YouTube. Whether some of that stuff is good or bad, I will let other people decide. Yeah. But in retrospect, the COVID kind of helped open the classical music world to the new technology.
Absolutely.
And new technology and new way of doing promotion work and of doing publicity. In a sense that before the COVID, the YouTube stuff, the Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, social media type stuff was primarily done by sports teams, by individual sports players, by pop stars like Mariah Carey, Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, and that like. And the COVID, in retrospect, helped the classical music industry move toward the 21st century in a way. So now we see so much talent, I'm gonna say, that's out there, that's on YouTube and so forth, that plays the piano or whatever instruments that we wouldn't hear otherwise.
Yeah. That's very true. It's a way of sharing now, and I want to just highlight one thing you said. Whether it's good or not, will let other people decide. That's the beauty of it. In a business, in a good working business, you let the market decide whether your product is good or not. And if it's not good enough, then you improve it. But that's actually a really beautiful thing about what we're doing now, is that if people like it, then people will like it. People will actually want more of it. And I think we're touching on something that's going to be really revolutionary in the way we promote and share the music we love. And do you have a thought about that?
When we started Sound Espressivo last year, that was one of the subjects we talked about with Anna in interviews. That they're still on YouTube. People can go watch them from last year. And one of the things that many of us were saying is that the use of technology in the classical industry, it will remain. The streaming of live performances, be it done at home or at concert halls, will become more important. The competitions, online masterclasses will become more and more prevalent. Why? Because, well, people found out that you don't need to be paying thousands of bucks to travel somewhere to do a competition. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you found out that you don't need to pay $1,000 to $2,000 for a jury to show up and judge.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so both sides win. You, as a presenter, you spend less on paying judges and all of that overhead, and as a performer, as a student performing at competitions, well, you get to perform from where you feel comfortable.
Exactly.
For whether it is your own home, whether it is your conservatoire studio, whether it is your garage, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So that's so I think that's gonna remain. It's gonna grow even further. Yeah. Now, let's put a bit of a damper on that as well. Nothing will ever replace a live performance in front of a live audience. Nothing. I'll be one of the first to say that we need more live performances, more in-person performances in front of audience, real audience. Streaming is good. Streaming competitions, streaming private performances is all fine and good, but it lacks that connection with the audience. That, to me, I have to have it. I can't play, and that's the reason I don't do streaming concerts much. I can't play if I don't have that interaction with the audience, positive or negative. So I think, as much as streaming is here to stay, I think it's also very important to continue to promote live performances and to promote, to invite people to attend those live performances.
Yeah, thank you. You've given me a really brilliant segue to talk about the competition we're promoting as well, because it is live, broadcasted, and the thing I think I like about it is that you get immediate feedback from the jury. So you do get the affirmation, the confirmation that, you know, whether you've done well or not, you get some sort of interaction, which sometimes you don't get when you're just streaming it out there and that's it. And so there's 5 things, you know, to talk about this competition. It's just to remind our audience that, you know, first of all, there's no time limits. There's no repertoire requirements. So you can play anything and as long as you want. We will be listening for sure. And there's immediate feedback from the jury members. And also we have a total cash value, the prize value of over $100,000. We don't give away any cash prizes, but with the collaborations, with the management, with the performance opportunities, and the extra things you can get if you're just a little more courageous in asking, you'll be able to get some incredible prizes and incredible connections you can make. And like I said, the 5th thing is that it is live broadcasted, which means that you play from the comfort of your own home, but it is live. Nothing's recorded, and it goes out, and that's the way it is. Mistakes and all. So that's the beauty of this, you know, this competition. And with that, I want to thank you again, Avguste, for just gracing us with your wisdom, your thoughts, with your funny stories, but also your very meaningful stories. I really love this, your collaboration with Carter. It's very inspiring for me, and I kind of want to get to know more composition and composer friends and see if there's anything to develop from there.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our next conversation. And
Yeah, me
looking
too.
forward
It's
to
been
having
so
you
good.
as a judge this year on the Sound Espressivo.
It's going to be fun. Thank you for being so
Yeah,
gracious.
absolutely.
I really love talking to you. And with that, I want to thank also the Sound Espressivo board, as well as all the people who are behind the scenes, from Dr. Anna to our producer and director, Ante Borjic for making this show happen. So that we'll see you next time. This will not be the last time you see any of us. This week, Avguste will be joining me with a panel discussion. We're going to see more judges. It's going to be really exciting. So I'm looking forward to chatting very soon. So see you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you
See
again.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressivo Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.